In this unit, I will show you with a real-world example what you can actually do with SAP Workflow Management in the tool itself. But let me just come now to the example. So capital expenditure approvals. You probably wonder, is this relevant for my organization? I guess yes, because we see these capital expenditure approvals in many of our customer situations. So whenever think about you would like to create a new project, you would run a new project, you would like to create a new building, for example, or you would like to do some other bigger investments, for example, also buying a software system, then you need budget. So, and this capital needs to be approved by someone. And probably you would say, this is quite easy. Yes, it can be easy, but it could also sum up to several, probably up to 20 levels of approvals during your hierarchy, which you would like to include. Or probably you would like to include certain KPIs. So for example, like one of our customers did, they would like to include their sustainability KPIs there. So nevertheless, we have seen capital expenditure approvals at different customer situations, and we have just listed here one here, Danone, who have also dealt with it and solved the issue which they have had before. So with a manual process, with not really having a kind of a track record what's going on, with the help of SAP Workflow Management. And by the way, this was also the trigger for us that we have seen, though a capital expenditure approval could be slightly different in each and every organization, there are certain patterns which are reoccurring. And wouldn't it be good to have there some predefined content which you could use as an accelerator for your projects? And the answer was yes. And we have worked on this. And now we are also providing a rich set of these content packages in different LOBs in different areas. But today we will focus on capital expenditure approvals. When we take a look, most likely such an approval process could look like this. So someone would review this CapEx request, then submission will be created. Of course, then the approval is going on. And as I said, this could sum up to different levels of approvals. Then the budget will be provided. Then the investment will be done. For example, a project will be created. And then, of course, at the end, you would also like to measure whether the investment you have made, whether you really get the money back, so to speak, with your ROI. And for this, we are using different capabilities of SAP Workflow Management to really fulfill this need to have this capital expenditure approval process automated. Let me show this now in a demo. So I'm now here in the Launchpad, and as you can see, there are several tiles, of course, on the one hand side for the business user, like in my inbox tile, and also the process flexibility cockpit, which could also be used by a citizen developer. I will show you this in a minute. There are some administration tools here in the monitoring area, and also we have created here some custom applications. And this is actually where I would like to start, because we will now create a new CapEx request. So, and therefore, let me type in some information, the first name, last name, and the email address. Then, of course, we also would need the user ID. We could put in here some comments, but also here now starting to really do the request for the new CapEx request. And in this case, we would like to have new office building in Walldorf. And why is this the case? Because we have new team members, and of course we also need more space for the new team members. So now let us put in the cost for this building, also the operational costs to add them. And then also we can provide here some financial numbers, and also, if we would like to have it here, also some sustainability KPIs. So what I've mentioned earlier, what we have also seen in customer cases, that also these areas, these items are important. Okay, so we have entered all the information, and now we can request a new capital expenditure. So let us go back now, and we can see here also number here in my inbox application has increased. So there's a new item in it, and now a business user, in this case actually the local manager, as you can see here, approval for CapEx request, new office building in Waldorf. In your role as local manager, can now go through all the details. You will get, of course, all the information which are necessary, and then either approve or reject this request. Let us approve it, and then if we do a short refresh, we can then see that also the item will be forwarded then to the next role. In this case, this would be the vice president. And of course, as you could imagine, then all the information will be the same here at the end. So that's here, the one we have just created right now in your role as vice president. But now let's take a look how this has been created, or what are the underlying artifacts. And in this case, as I said, with workflow management, we are more or less taking care from pro-code developers to low-code to also no-code citizen developers. And here in the process flexibility cockpit, this is the central place where you can, on the one hand side, discover the live process content packages. And by the way, within these packages, there are also several artifacts available. And then you can see here also what has already been imported. But if we go now here, we can see here there's 32 live process content packages available. As I said, we are currently working on to provide much more in different areas, in different industries, in different LOBs. And the ones which we are taking care of today is capital expenditure approval process. And if we can take a look here, so we on the one hand side see what kind of documents are available, setup guide, end user guide, configuration guide, but also there is a link to a GitHub repository where you actually will find the sources. So the workflow, for example, you will also find the user interfaces and whatever you need. And the central artifacts, what we will have in these live process content packages, they can vary, of course, can be different in each content packages, but normally you would get a process, you will get decisions, so the underlying business rules, and also a visibility scenario where you can then gain the end-to-end process visibility for this certain process. And if we take a closer look here, we can also see, for example, which default variant has been configured here. In this case, we have just one approval step, and this can then, of course, be adapted based on the business needs accordingly. So I'm back here now in the process flexibility cockpit, and now let's take a look what has been configured here. So as you can see, there are certain areas, and we will go through them now step by step. So on the one hand side, we have the process variants. So this means based on this default variant, which I have shown you before with this single step, then the citizen developer is free to create here variants really based on the business requirements. So now let's take a look at the CapEx for infrastructure. So as you can see here, based on this default variant, so the approval step, which is here also as an available step, there has been created a dedicated process variant with an approval by local manager, the approval by the vice president, which you have seen, and of course there are several other approval steps which can easily be added by just moving here the steps into the canvas, and then finally just save and activate it. So with this, it's quite easy for a citizen developer to really create the process variants according to their needs. But there is more. Because we not only have the process variant in such a package, as you have seen, we have also decisions in there. And for example, in this case, we also have a decision to determine the approvers. So let us take a look what's happening here. First of all, there is a rule included here, a text rule, which will decide whether actually manual approval is necessary. So if someone really needs to click on the approve button, or whether this would be an auto approval itself. And then on the next step, there would be, for example, here the possibility to determine the approvers. And in this case, this is a decision table maintained with different attributes. And of course, you are also free to change this business rule really based on your business needs. As a third step, we have here our visibility scenario. So we can maintain here some general information, description, of course, and then also maintain the processes. So what are the so-called participants in our scenario? And you can add here different kind of processes. So on the one hand side, and also what we have done here, we have added a workflow from the workflow service. But of course, you could also add a process template. You will learn later on how this is possible, but even a business workflow. And also a Quadric survey, so that you also get the information, the sentiment analysis within your process visibility dashboard. There is, of course, also the context information listed, because based on this context attributes and the values behind it, then you are able to really define the attributes, what are here, and then finally also define the performance indicators which you would like to have displayed in your dashboard finally. So this could be, for example, the number of open capital expenditure approval requests. This could be, for example, also the cycle time. There are different representations possible, and really you can slice and dice here the information so that all the information which is relevant for your business user is also displayed here. Another interesting fact is that you not can only provide information, but you could also define some action. So this means whenever there are issues within a certain instance, then, for example, a workflow will be triggered to restart the approval if there is something, if the approval didn't complete finally, or you could even, for example, notify the process admin that there is some issues, some business issues under certain conditions. In addition to that, there are different target states which can be defined. So the status here, may this be critical, at risk, on track, completed with violations, for example, or completed without violations. So with just a few steps here, you could easily define what kind of, information you would like to have displayed, and of course, what kind of performance indicators should be measured for the business user. And now let's take a look how this information, which has been defined here, can actually be consumed. And therefore, we will go here into the live process insights. So we have here the dashboard. We can see the open capital expenditure approval request by status, what I've showed you before, the cycle time by variant even, so the approved capital expenditure by business unit. We can even see the total cost. In this case, we can have information regarding the step cycle time, so how much time it really took in the different areas. We can see how many have been completed without violations, how many are currently open, the overall value, and so on and so forth. So it's really up to you what kind of information you would like to have displayed here. And as you have seen before, it's quite easy also to configure this information. Probably would mean, okay, this is now a nice dashboard, but is there something more? Yes, there is much more, because you could even go into details of the single instances and really get here also the information. And again, based on the process context, on the workflow context, which has been defined before. And as I said before, here is also, for example, such an action which has been defined here to restart the approval in this case. So quite powerful, as you can see, not only getting an overview, but really going into the details here. So let us go back now. Here again, process flexibility cockpit. And what I have shown you so far was on the one hand side in my inbox application, process flexibility cockpit. There are certain monitoring tools which could be used. So for example, an administrator could also go into here, into some details and take a look at what's currently going on, how the workflows, the instances are performing. Are there any errors? What is the workflow context? And also take a look at the execution log. Besides this, of course, there are also the workflow definitions available here. And there, of course, you can then also dive into much more details and get information out of this. So this was the view for the business user, for the citizen developer, and also for the administrator. Now let's go one step deeper and take a look how this would look like for a low-code developer who could really then also implement a workflow behind the scenes. So we are now in the SAP Business Application Studio. So this is the environment where you can create workflows, also create user interfaces, for example, forms and so on and so forth. And of course, everything what you're doing here could also then be packaged and be made available into a live process content package. So the live process content package can include the workflow, the process, the variants, what you have seen. It could include business rules, visibility, scenarios, and also the user interfaces. Now let's take a look here on the capital expenditure project here. And on the one hand side, what we see here, for example, the template. So what I have told you before. So a template which has been used to create then the process template in this case. So we have the process context, we have the process steps and so on, but also the default variant. So remember what I've shown you in the beginning within the Business Hub. So this is actually the variant which has been created as one default variant. And the variant itself is based on certain process steps, and underneath this process steps, of course, is then a workflow. So if we take a look at the approval step, we can see that there are different artifacts included. So they are all based on BPMN 2.0. These are different task types. What we have here, user task, service task, script task, mail task, and even a reference subflow. So if you would like to do some structuring within your workflows, and then there are different gateways available, and you can make use of them, of course, then in the definition of your workflow itself, and then really have here a meaningful and also powerful environment which you could use to create your workflows. So in the next units, you will learn actually how to create such kind of workflows, how to create templates, the variants, the business rules, and the visibility scenarios. And this was also the end of this demo.